And it was just all this bad stuff happened, all this crazy change happened. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to have an adventure out of this. And I try to remind myself, be like 20-year-old Shannon. Look at it like an adventure.
And what I realized is that every single thing that has happened has had to happen for what is now happening to be able to happen.
If you really want to create in your life what you want, you have to lead the change. You have to change inside first. And then if you change inside first, it's like the world will shape to you.
And I think sometimes, like, when change gets really crazy, it is important to look for what is the same right now. Like, because I think we all are, like, in the middle of change fatigue.
If you just make that simple commitment that I just want to be 1% better today than I was yesterday, you will inevitably over time unhook, unlock, and unchain yourself from every self-limiting belief that you have. Welcome to Season 2 of the Evolving Mindsets podcast. This season, we're exploring something deeper, the unfolding of things, a time of change, transformation, and the emergence of new truths. In today's episode, Change is Gonna Come, we share the real stories of what change has felt like in our lives and what it means to lead with purpose when everything feels uncertain. We hope this conversation meets you wherever you are and reminds you that even through disruption, you are not alone. And just before we dive in, here's a clip of an original song created just for this moment. If you want to hear more, stay tuned for Shannon's quotes, Shane's poem, and the full track at the end of the episode.
Ladies and gents, listen close. Signals in the air, coast to coast. Dial in your mind, get ready now. Set your spirit free, it's going down. Attention passengers, all aboard. Please keep your hearts and minds inside the vehicle. Breaking news is just in. Freedom always wins. Dial into a higher plane. Calibration for your brain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolving Mindsets podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 1. We're getting started fresh this year. And this is your host, Clinton Baggett, and I'm here with Shannon Baggett and Shane Russell, my co-hosts. Today, to get things going, we want to talk about change because there's been a lot of change since our last episode, change in our personal lives, change in the government, change all over the place. And there's plenty more change coming. So we figured we'd just talk about the change and what's been going on with us and what's been going on with the world and how we're dealing with it. And with that, Shannon, would you like to get us started?
Yes, I would. First of all, I just want to say that I missed doing this with you guys so much. And
Likewise.
because so much change has been going on, we haven't really had a chance to sit down and do this for a couple months. And so I'm really glad we're back at it. But really, I think change has been a topic of conversation with us just in our normal everyday conversations with everything that's been going on. And sometimes when it gets crazy like this, it's hard to connect. And I'm just, really excited to see what you guys have to say on the topic. And if you want to talk about what's going on in our personal lives, we can do that too.
I was thinking, we can just kind of start there and get everybody kind of caught up. I mean, I'm sure even for our listeners, they're probably out there going, think about where, any of us were 4 or 5 months ago. And, what's that one big thing that has changed for you? I guess, Shane, what is the one big thing that has changed for you since the last time we were on?
Hey guys, glad to be back. Also, I'm equally excited and super inspired. So much change has happened in my life personally. I, we go through chapters in our lives, and I pretty much wrapped up book 2 or book 1 of my life in season 1 of the podcast, I'd lost everything. I achieved amazing success in my life, lost everything, and kind of got back to ground zero, got back to my roots, and spent some time with my family. And I don't know. And it wasn't until like the universe, I guess, felt like I was ready, and it was really when I felt like I was ready, like change started happening, like the doors started opening, and yeah, so much change has happened this last year for me alone. Uh, at a magnitude that really feels like divine intervention. That I have a lot to say on the subject.
Yeah,
Like
well,
right
tell us. I know
now,
you've got some big ones. Tell us about the big one. What you're doing, because I know you were looking for work and you're struggling through that. And where are you now?
yeah, man. So like I, sometimes things don't work out in our relationships, and it's okay. And what I've learned is like blessings come sometimes in painful wrapping, and and what I've realized is that every single thing that has happened has had to happen for what is now happening to be able to happen, right? And so my family, like we separated, and some things happened, and I spent some time with someone, and I over invested in them, I thought at the time, and I ended up like with nothing, just with my mom and dad, and I couldn't get a job, dude. Like I helped build PayPal in the whole world that they're operating on right now. Couldn't get a job for like a year. And my mom used to say like, "Oh, son, like it just means that wasn't meant to be or whatever." And I was so upset that I had like given everything I had away to people that I thought weren't worthy and all this stuff. But then I got a job in Chicago just randomly out of the blue, and I moved to Chicago, and I was living in a hotel room, and just kind of like knocking the dust off and stuff, getting back into what it is that I do, which is data center operations type stuff, technology. Anyway, and like the second day I was there, my new job in Chicago, after like just like nothing for like a year, feeling sorry for myself kind of, but also really believing, leaning more into the believing. Um, and when I let go and just had faith, the door opened, moved to Chicago. Second day in Chicago, somebody that I had great success with from one of my former teams back in the day looked me up through the greatest leader I ever had, Clint Baggett. You guys might know him. And now I'm with the. I just moved to Dallas and had the greatest job ever in my life, doing something that's just epic. And we'll probably go
Yeah.
down to 3, and I don't know, I'm feeling pretty good. A lot of change has had to happen to get here, and it hasn't been painful, and it hasn't been comfortable, but it's all been kind of on God's timing. And also, like, there were things that I had to do to prepare myself for what comes. We have to be strategic, and we have to take action, right?
Yeah, yeah, and as I was hearing you talk, right, it's sometimes it's hard when there's a lot of changes going on, because you kind of alluded to a lot of different things there that were, going on, and I know we've been chatting. A lot of that was going on while we were recording the podcast, and so we got to see, these progressions happen and the changes occur, and sometimes it's hard to dial it down to just kind of like, what was that thing? But, what I heard you saying was that there was definitely ups and downs. I know you were looking for your spaces, but one of the big changes that came through was I remember you got to that moment where you were just got really open. You were like, I'm just open to the universe, to whatever comes. And I remember you just having that conversation, and then it's like the doors just started opening, right? And then change after change after change came. And so I always thought it was fascinating how really the change started with you in that, or at least it felt like it did, right? Like you made that shift and then things progressed forward. I know for me, it happened the same way too. Like I was trying to figure out marketing. I was trying to figure out, how to run a community and how to run a business, and all this kind of stuff to offer the coaching and support services that I have the skill set and, I've been doing for a while. But, this change of, from being employed in corporate structures for, over 2 decades to being out on your own was magnificent. And it was difficult making that adjustment. And I hit that kind of same thing in, I think it was December or so, where it's just like, I don't even know what to do. And then I remember going, I'm just going to lean into what feels good and what do I love and what feels like the most fun to me. and I started making YouTube videos. It's something I'd always wanted to do, and there was new AI was available that helped me, calibrate and write scripts and, do editing and create background tracks. So I found I was able to produce these videos pretty fast. So like that's kind of one big change for me is, by the time we were doing our last episode, I was not doing YouTube videos other than the podcast itself. And now, I think I've made something like 25 or 30 YouTube videos. So it's lots of big, changes going on. So Shannon, like what's kind of one notable change in your mind?
Oh my goodness. I feel like there's just been like a lot of little things, you know? Like obviously you move into the doing the YouTube stuff and for us as well, like with you, job hunting, you've got some prospects out there. And so right now I think for me, it's the anticipation of change that is sort of like at the forefront.
Ooh,
You
that's good.
know, knowing that what's going to happen, the end of this month or next month and whatever that entails, like that's really kind of just like what's been looming. Is just the idea that change is coming, but not knowing what it is.
Yeah,
And
if I could just jump in and I'll hand it back to you in just a moment, and just talking about that, like, I was doing some research, like, why does change feel so hard, right? And, it turns out our brain is wired for a natural state of certainty and familiarity. Like, we want the environment to stay kind of residual so that we can be at peace, and that brings us to a healthy state of mind. But yet we live in a universe where everything is always changing. So we have to deal with change. But it's actually, anticipation that releases dopamine, right? It's like that. You think it's about to come. Dopamine is that motivating. It's that thing that gets your blood pumping and gets you moving, right? And so, change causes lots of release in that. And at the other end of that, you have the cortisol that comes out of the back to balance you out and bring you back down. When you have so much change going on, so much anticipation, so much change coming, right? Like it's just stressful. And they've said that it doesn't matter whether the change is a negative change or a positive change, just like someone, waiting to get married, right? Like you probably wanted for years to get married. Someone proposed or you proposed and they said yes, and it's super exciting and you're moving toward it. Why is it so stressful? Because it's change, and change by its very nature, when we're anticipating it, like you're saying, is stressful.
yeah, totally. I mean, I think if, you know, any stress, even if it's good stress over something like exciting, it's still stress to your body, right? Your body is still reacting to that. And right now, like I can feel that. There's days I've told you I'm like, man, I think I had a cortisol dump yesterday because I am exhausted and, you know, feeling beat. But it's still exciting, like there is the anticipation of like, what is coming, I know is going to be great and wonderful and I'm looking forward to that. I think it's just what really I struggle with the most is the just yeah, the unknown part of it. Cause like, me, I'm a planner and I like to think
Uh,
things out. And then when I can't do that, it's like I get a little
because
anxious.
there's some things about this whole change thing, you guys, that, you know, I mean, it is bigger than us, and we have like, I mean, just out of due respect, like some obligation to understand that it's bigger than us, and we have to have faith and believe in it. I mean, whatever created us and got us here, you know what I'm saying? And it's so easy to get on the hamster wheel in your own head. Like I overthink
Oh
everything.
yeah.
Like I literally thought I was going to die alone, broken and broke in my mommy and daddy's fucking basement like a year ago. You know what I'm saying? Like after achieving more than I ever achieved in my entire life. And so all of these things came, but they had to. Like everything that got burned down or like just, and it hurts the other people, like my children and other people got hurt by some of the things that happened. But at the end of the day, I understand now, as painful as it was, like these things had to change for us to all keep going where we were kind of designated to go or designed to. And change like like a snake shedding the skin or whatever, like it's as growth happens, it's imminent. It's coming no matter what change. And we can plan for all the things as hard and as much as we want, and we should strategize. You know what I'm saying? But you always have to plan for the unexpected and unknown. And the past is behind us, and neuropathology, your brain gets kind of hardwired. Mine got hardwired to think like, oh, I'm just, like I'm never going to be that again. Like life is passing by or whatever. And then there's like the universe's part in the whole thing. Like, okay, well, we can't start change until this change happens over here and over here. Well, like there's a lot of change happening that we're all a part of. So sometimes the change in the whole doesn't feel like, our thing
Yeah,
doesn't seem like it's just changing because, things have to change in the whole for it to kind of synchronize, for it to all be able to change.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's, I kind of hear you talking about like the inevitability of it, almost the overwhelm of it. I was thinking about this just while you were saying that, like, I teach change as a principle. I actually just released the Principle of Change video on the YouTube channel for the Pathfinder program. And, I talk about leading change, right? That if you really want to create in your life what you want, you have to lead the change. You have to change inside first. And then if you change inside first, it's like the world will shape to you.
Hey, Clint here. Speaking of shaping the world, I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's been helping us shape this podcast into what it's becoming. To those of you who have liked, subscribed, shared this episode with a friend, or left a comment below, thank you. Your engagement and feedback is the fuel that drives us forward. Every listen, every word, every bit of energy you put into this space ripples out farther than you might realize. We feel it, and we appreciate it. Okay, back to the episode.
If you really want to create in your life what you want, you have to lead the change. You have to change inside first. And then if you change inside first, it's like the world will shape to you. And this is how we manifest. But there is also external change, right? There's change that is happening around us. And sometimes, like, I'm a fan of a little bit of chaos. I kind of like, especially if things have been the same for a long time, a little bit of chaos can be disruptive, and it can, kind of till the soil, so to speak. It can, draw up, create opportunities for innovations and stuff like that. And, when you're looking for change and you're looking for growth, it's a very powerful tool. But like lately, it has just been so intense. It has felt like, if we have the government disclosing more about, potential or what do they call them, UAPs now, right, instead of UFOs. Like, there's this stuff, government changes. I mean, then there's the release of AI and job space changes and market changes, and everything's changing. And then then there's changes going on in your personal life. Since, they said that, like, since COVID, I forget how many percent, like a good portion of the population just said they went home for a minute and they're like, you know what, I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. And I think we're feeling kind of this like crucible of, there was a lot of personal change that started years ago, and it is developing and coming to this place of fruition. And that we're also at a point where, technology is changing, governments are changing, everything seems to be changing, and it's really intense right now, right?
And a lot of people
Yeah.
are feeling it, and they don't even know that they're feeling it, and they're disconnected because, like Einstein said, at a certain point, like the wealthy will control all the sources of information, and even good people won't be able to find the truth anymore. Everybody is feeling this thing and struggling to be able to. It's almost like the reverse dark ages, like a tsunami of porta potty, like viral negativity or disinformation or something. However, the absolutes aren't changing. And the absolutes, those things like life and death and like, just so many things. They don't die, and they have the most value. And all the stuff that we can't take with us, we have to like shift our focus, despite it being reality, from there and reside in the more of the eternal divine aspects of things, because that doesn't change. And a common denominator that we all possess is we're all a part of it. And the here together, and also wherever we're going and why ever we showed up here. And also, none of us really know really what the truth is. We have all of that in common, right? But it's the absolutes that don't change. And I think it's the absolutes that we were here to find. And I think it's also the absolutes that, I mean, is where, and the change that does happen in all these other areas that can be so painful and so distracting that we get so hyper focused on, in itself helps us in all of the endeavors, but it's that resistance that helps us level up. And for me, I had to lose everything basically worldly in order to even like see like the light finally. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you talking about the absolutes, um, just makes me think of, one thing that, um, like, Clint specifically kind of brought this up with the kids, like, whenever something would change with the kids, like, they would get a new bed in the room, and it would be exciting for them, but also, like, really intimidating because all of a sudden, their crib is gone, and now they have a big kid bed, and they don't know what to do with it. And Clint was always really great about sitting down with them and being like, I know this is a big change, but let's not focus on that change. Let's focus on what stays the same.
Yeah.
It's still your room. That's still your teddy bear and that's still your blanket. And, you're still in the same house. And in those moments, when the change was the biggest for them, the absolutes, the things that stayed the same, the constants is what helped them get through that,
Well,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes, like, when change gets really crazy, it is important to look for, you know what is the same right now, like, because
Yeah.
I think we all are, like, in the middle of change fatigue, especially since COVID. Like,
yeah,
it
it's like
has
we've
been
been pulled out in
nonstop.
the undertow. We've been pulled out in the undertow, and it's like freaking we're in a tsunami of change. Everyone is, you know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
to your point, Shannon, what stays the same? And but even beyond that, and this is where we all have a choice, and this is a really because the change, like we don't have to be a victim to it, or we don't have to be wait around for it. We get to participate in this change, and the change begins with the choices that we make. And while the change is happening, we have things that we can control. So we have the choice to make measurable progress in the areas that we can control. But then we also have the opportunity to focus on what we're focusing on, you know what I'm saying? And what is awesome in our lives and the joy, regardless of how subatomic it is paramount to drive the change in the most optimal direction and align to like our destiny and to our highest version of self, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll jump in here. Like, I think, I hear Shannon, you're talking about, you said change fatigue, because I feel like that's absolutely what's going on. I mean, it's been years of change, and and not to sound daunting about it, but we're not done. It's change is coming. There's more change coming. Absolutely, it's going to keep going for a couple years because there's too much in flux right now. And you brought up a really, brilliant point. It is one of the best coping techniques, and it sounds silly and it sounds simple, but it's really, really true that if you start feeling that change overwhelm or that panic or paranoia, like all you really have to do is look around and focus for what things are the same. And Shane, you kind of, and this will tie into what you were saying too. It's this beautiful universal truths of it, right? Like this might sound a little silly, but just simply like I like to sit and go, okay, well, let's just start with the biggest, easiest things. The sun still rose this morning. I'm on
Yeah,
a planet that has been
I
here
will.
for, millions of years in a universe that has existed in a constant state of change,
That
that
the stars
everything is
shine.
always changing. Yeah. And that, there are those things that I can hold to. And, like I'm still me. And, and then you just kind of bring it in closer and closer and realize that, even though it feels scary and you see a lot of things that are threatening, the truth is people are still people. We still love each other. We still need to connect. We get scared. Yes, we can get kind of silly and dumb about things and do stupid stuff sometimes, but that we're free to make those mistakes. It's part of the growing process that we have. That's even not changing. And one thing that isn't changing is the evolution of mankind. We're here because we are adaptable. And I think that's what, we've really got to focus on how we become adaptable. The adaptability, right, is about accommodating or aligning or moving in such a way that you are in the most survivable state that you can. And so for us, I think in this modern kind of economy world and consciousness, what if, to make that meaningful, for me, it's why I like to go, I think about the future I want to have. I think about, a place where I can go out and like all my neighbors and we're all friends. And I mean, honestly, I'm friends with all my neighbors now. So that's not even a huge change, right? But like, where more and more people can do that and we can have, community and connection and these things that are really, really helpful to us. But I think about that, and I ask myself, well, how does that feel? And then I realize that if I imagine, I can feel that feeling of peace, right? And my mind starts to settle down, my shoulders relax, and I start to go, okay, like that's what I want. I get in that moment and I become that. Even though the world is chaotic right now, I become peace in the moment for that moment because that's the change I'm looking for, is the change that feels like peace. And I line my mind up with that so that I can move in that direction. And I think we have to have those pillars, those things in us, those kind of, it's the rope, right? That like tying to the mast. Like, what are your core values? What are the things that are really important to you? Because a time of immense change like this is going to test all your boundaries. And you're going to, if you don't know what is the most important thing to you, you'll probably find yourself figuring it out in the next 2 to 3 years because there's just a lot of change coming, right?
Yeah, I love everything that you just said so much. Um, so we have these choices that there's no fairy that's going to come along and all of a sudden like set us up in some like optimal situation, right? And the the change is coming. It's coming for all of us every single day in all the ways. And but again, we don't have to be victim to it. We don't have to be subjected to it. We get to participate in it, and we do get to make choices. And investing our time wisely with the best people in the endeavors that we're going to invest time and energy and effort into is important. And it's taken me using kind of like the scientific method of like I'll try this. Well, my hypothesis is this will never happen to me. And then it happened to me or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But after like so many times of figuring shit out the wrong way, I realized like, okay, like, like the life, the system of life or whatever, it teaches you in itself. You teach yourself, but it all goes back to the few things that you can control. And, every single day and all the ways that we have and all the things that we do with all the people we do it with, we have the opportunity to dial in like a radio, like old school radio, like dial in the station to where we can pick it up clearly, you know what I'm saying? And perpetuate the transmission of whatever we're here to do. And, but I do think having an active choice and getting ourselves to focus on the things and the people and the activities that are going to help us elevate and perpetuate the best kind of change. And really, the best kind of change is to be the best version of who you were meant to be, to bear your fruits for the life around us, because we're all equally valuable to the whole. And we all came for a reason. And that's because others have something that we need that we can give them. And so we have an objective to like figure this out while the window's open so that we can bring our contributions to the feast as we were intended to do.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really easy to be or to find yourself a victim of change. Change is happening around you and you could just be like, "Oh, I can't deal with this. I don't know what to do with it." Or you can literally just look at the situation, find out what's going to work for you and drive your life or whatever. You steer it in that change. You can let it sweep you away like a wave, or you can steer yourself where you need to go.
I love that, Shannon, because recently, as everybody knows, we were just like in one of the most like chaotic, climatic, like political scenario in United States history, possibly. And so many people and so much division around me and so much fighting and hating and like everybody talking shit about each other. And like people point at me sometimes like, whoa, do not point at me because I had nothing to do with the bad choices that you made and or the life that happened to happen to you, because life has also happened to me and I made more bad choices than everybody combined. So I'm not responsible for the outcome that you had choices in. You had choices in what happened to you, and everybody's like standing back, pointing fingers at each other, when really, and you said something earlier that made me laugh. Like, people ask me like, "Are you Republican or Democrat?" Like, I would always say, like, I mean, I think I'm an anarchist. And they're like, "What do you mean?" Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just following the Ten Commandments over here. I'm not getting sidetracked. I've been around the world. I'm a human being on the planet Earth. I'm not going to trip over the low bar set by any of the governments to control us. Like, so I'm pretty much an anarchist, and I'm just going to follow the Ten Commandments. And that's kind of been the foundation that I paved on the pathway that I'm walking on to the destination that I feel like I was most intended. Like, we don't need to be distracted by all this insanity. Like, what we've been searching for the entire time has been inside of each of us our whole lives. And if we can figure that out and bring that out in each other and share it with the others, then all of us can benefit. It's bigger than them.
Yeah. I was just talking with a couple earlier today, Tim and Carmela, just a fantastic group, a couple that are, out there finding new ways to do finances. Their whole business model, their whole purpose, their whole way of doing things is different. It's a massive change, but it's designed for the future of where we're going. So one of the changes they're going through, just like we are, is it's almost like a message before its time. So they're going to be coming into the community. We may even have them on the podcast later on in this season, but just hearing both of you talk, it brought me back right to the reason, like when we got together last week and we're deciding, okay, what are we going to do for this season of the podcast? We thought about it. Like, how do you have a topic that will run through? Because we kind of like to speak to what's going on in the world, because we always feel like what we want to hear about, what we want to talk about is what we're dealing with right now. Like, so it's timely messages. So we kind of came into this thing is like, we're going to have to talk about the unfolding of things. And that's how our season theme came up with, right? Is we're just going to have to watch as things unfold, and we're going to be witnessing all this change and and the growth and development of things. And I think, to your point, Shane, like, that's what we want to do, is through this time of change over the next year, is hold that anchor. We want to acknowledge everything that's happening, because that's wisdom. There's intelligence in that. We want to be aware and we want to make smart decisions. But we also need to be very conscious of the fact that a lot is changing. And we need to find those things that aren't changing, the things that we want to hold to, the anchors that get us through all the change that's coming.
The common denominator to every person alive is what I think it is also. It's like a revelation in everyone that's happening right now, that, like, holy crap, like it's bigger than our titles at our job and our 401k and our net worth. It's bigger than all of this. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of realizing it at the same time, after COVID especially.
Yeah, I find myself, I don't know about you guys, but I find myself trying to remind myself of how I dealt with change, like, in my early 20s. I welcomed it with open arms. Every weird thing that happened, every detour, every scenic route was an adventure. You know what I mean? Like, I just embraced it. I mean, there was a time in my 20s when I had broken up with my boyfriend. We were living together. I ended up back on my parents' couch, just sad, depressed. I had, left my job that I loved, like, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. And I was like, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. And my friend Katie and Jen, they lived in North Carolina, and I was like, you know what? I want to come visit you guys. I haven't seen you in a while since you moved. And they were like, you know what? You're gonna love it out here, so you should just move. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Fuck it. That sounds amazing. And I literally loaded up my car with whatever I could. And I grabbed my mom and I said, let's road trip this with me from Arizona to North Carolina. We'll stop at Missouri and see, your side of the family. And then you can just fly back. But do this road trip with me because it's going to take a few days. And we just did it. Like, I just did it. I just moved to North Carolina, never been there before. Like, I knew I was going to stay with Katie till I could find my own place and get a job. And it was amazing. I lived there for, almost 5 years. And it was just all this bad stuff happened, all this crazy change happened, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to have an adventure out of this. And I try to remind myself, be like 20-year-old Shannon. Look at it like an adventure.
Speaking of turning change into an adventure, I wonder what would shift if you looked at your current life like that? Not as something happening to you, but something calling you forward. What would it mean to greet change like a doorway instead of a detour? That's the kind of perspective we explore in our community every week together. If you're feeling the winds of change blowing in your life, come anchor in a space that supports your growth. Visit us at evolvingmindsets.com. You belong here.
And it was just all this bad stuff happened, all this crazy change happened, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to have an adventure out of this. And I try to remind myself, be like 20-year-old Shannon. Look at it like an adventure. Stop
enjoy
stressing.
the ride.
Yeah.
We have to enjoy the ride. We have to learn how to enjoy the ride. Without the downs, there's not going to be the ups. There's always going to be downs. There's always going to be ups. We have to white knuckle it, hang on, and literally bite the bullet on the downside. Like, we all have it. Life happens. It sucks sometimes, man. But I mean, like, again, if you do what you did, and also if we always are mindful of that absolute, that, like, since we're a little baby to our last breath, we're always going to feel it, that thing, that whatever is bigger than us, that definitely is there. If we just go with that and enjoy the ride, like, I really have come to believe that that's exactly what we're supposed to do. And only when we do exactly that is when the doors open. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, they say that there are the top four things that the psychological anchors that help people with change, right? The first one is purpose, right? And, an adventure is purpose, right? That's having that joy of it. That's owning it, right? That's becoming part of it. And, so many times in organizations, like when we're dealing with massive change, what we do is, to get through that, is we go, well, what benefits us? What benefit is coming out of this change? And we have to kind of let go of that comfort part. There's an interesting aspect of change that not a lot of people bring up, but in every change there is a small death. There's a small losing, because
Sacrifice.
if something changed,
Absolutely.
if something changes from A to B, even if B is better, A is gone. And
Yep.
so there's a little bit of loss that we always experience with it. And so purpose helps us to be able to kind of process that loss. The second thing the second anchor is community. And, that's why we built the Evolving Mindsets community, is we know that change is coming. And so we want a place where there's a consistent vibration, a consistent mission, a consistent purpose as a collective of people, that we're like, look, we're just a group of people trying to find our highest alignment. We want to help each other. We want to survive. We want to be successful. We want to thrive, and we want to build a future that we're happy for our children. We want to leave behind legacies that are beneficial.
Yeah.
And and so then the third one is to identity fluidity. Sorry, I'm tripping up this identity fluidity. There we go. All right. So meaning, recognize yourself as dynamic, recognize yourself as someone that can change. So, I love, Shannon, what you were saying, like, what would 20-year-old Shannon do? Well, 20-year-old Shannon was experiencing a lot of change and was welcoming that change and had that growth mindset, because you're at that beginning of life, right? So we want to carry that forward through. One of the big changes we might be facing is, at 50 years old, that might not be the halfway point to life anymore. It might be more like 60, 70, or 80 with all the healthcare changes, so we have a lot ahead of us. And if we maintain ourselves as dynamic, growing, evolving individuals, it also helps us to understand that this change that is part of, what's going on, is something that is really helpful for us. I was thinking about the fact that, the Gen X generation, when we were in our late teens and early 20s, all we wanted was change. Well, now we have it. So, now we're having to deal with this. So to all the younger generations, we manifested this. I own that. I'm sorry, but hey, this is the change. We're going to make things better. And this is how we do it. We get together, we talk about it, we get our focus, we find our purpose, we build our communities. And then the cool thing is, the fourth thing that helps with change. The fourth psychological anchor is rituals, right? Maintaining some things that are familiar. And so that's why we like to do this. We get together on a regular basis. We decided that in releasing these episodes, we're gonna record them, we're gonna produce them and drop them as fast as we can. So if we can't record or miss, but that way we're staying dynamic with the times,
We're
but
making
we're
the
going to
choice
try
to
to
continue.
maintain this ritual so that there is consistent things, because we all need something that we can count on, that we can go, okay, well, once a week, whenever it drops, every Sunday night, we're going to record a new episode of the podcast. Or we need that consistency, because that consistent thread, as it weaves through all the change, will actually give us a lot of strength and help us to ease and relax into that.
Yeah, I mean, this is only the highest ground is only possible together, and we got to have good manners and help each other up. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, if nobody listens to this but our grandchildren's grandchildren, which is going to be cool, we've helped each other to next week. And we're talking about the most important things in life that are rarely communicated man to man, as Emerson put it. And also, when we shine each other, we all grow. It's so important. And also, Shannon, to your point, kind of, I had this revelation recently, and this might be the stupidest thing I've ever said or will, but I recently had an epiphany, like, holy crap, like, volume 1 is done. Here we go, volume 2, chapter 1, page 1. And like, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way, and a bunch of cool things happened. Like, of all the bad things that have happened and the wrong relationships or things that ended that I thought that, like, they did me dirty or I invested unwisely in, I realize now they all had to happen. Forgive everyone. And but a lot of experience was accumulated, and my brain is still strong, and I'm walking in the light now, totally in the light, monk mode, for the first time ever. And here we go with the stupidest thing that
Well,
I'm ever say. I know that I could physically and or whatever way destroy my 25-year-old self at 52. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could, like, I look like Homer Simpson, but I have an invisible cape now. And, like, I know that the 20, like, I have evolved and it took all that first book 1 to prepare me for book 2. And I was on the ledge and I dove in, like, and here we go. Like,
interesting synchronicity there, 25 to 52. Parallels from the universe.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think, I agree with what you're.
Yeah.
I don't think it's stupid at all. Like, I absolutely think that 7-year-old Shannon could kick 20-year-old Shannon's ass in
I
a
would
lot
not
of
fuck
ways,
with the whatever
but
you are now myself.
I wouldn't be where I'm at without 20-year-old.
Exactly my point.
Like, she was
It took it
completely
all.
she was completely different version of me, but sometimes I forget that we all forget, we are where we are because of what we did in
Yeah.
the past. And
Congratulations.
there is some positive things to crazy moves and, being slightly young and stupid. But, like,
Yeah.
I do have to remind myself sometimes, like, you get into your late 40s or whatever, and you get very comfortable with things. And sometimes you forget the wild, crazy side of yourself that, like, you need
And
to
we're
remind
alive
yourself.
and we're
Yeah,
gonna
you have to
die.
remind yourself.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, all my life I was like, well, if I ever found out I was terminal, I would, like, do this or do that, like, just crazy things that, like, whatever, like, go take a bite out of somebody's hamburger at the restaurant and go sit back down and act like nothing happened, like, weird stuff. But then, like, I realized, like, wait a minute, I am going to die. So if I'm going to, like, only, like, go do crazy stuff, I mean, maybe not that crazy, that's pretty weird, but, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm terminal, then I'm terminal anyway, so I might as well just, like, not be afraid of anything and just go do it because it's there to be done. Like, low hanging fruit is hanging for all of us in every direction as far as I can see. If we just look up and, like, let go, it's, like, right there.
Yeah.
Totally. yeah, I think all the change is gonna inevitably it might not feel that way right now. It might not look that way right now, but inevitably down the road, everything that's happening right now is gonna make us stronger in the long run.
And it's like rowing a boat in rapids. We still have like a part in where we end up in this whole freaking thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and we do. What I think is amazing. I was thinking about you guys, what you were just saying about, your younger versions and stuff. And I was thinking, what would my younger version think about me? And, I'm going to be a little bit arrogant, but I'm exactly what younger me wanted to be. Right. I know that, like, I have survived all the hard times. I have held on to my integrity against all odds. I've made a whole lot of mistakes, but I've learned from all of them, and all the change that has occurred, I've adapted and found ways to thrive and survive and move forward. And I still feel like I'm a fairly good person, right? Like, I love helping people, I love working with people, I love interacting with people. And no matter how dark the night gets, like, I just
Still
keep moving
shining,
toward the
dog.
light, right? And
Yeah.
so, what's interesting, by consistently having that focus on, I just want to be a little bit more of me today than I was yesterday. I want to be a little bit better.
Better.
So that's
Yep.
the change I welcome every day, is that I just want to be a little bit more of me every day. And I hold that as that consistent ritual,
But you
and
take action.
yeah, and it helps me to change in the direction I want to change while the change
Alignment.
is going on,
Yes,
and it's
alignment.
called growth, right?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Oh my gosh, you know what I'm flashing to? You guys probably don't follow this or whatever, but if at some point you want to hear a really interesting sort of speech on what you're talking about, Clint,
Yeah.
when Matthew McConaughey won the Oscar however many years ago for whatever movie it was that he did, his speech was all about, like
Couple.
who's your hero, and he's like, who do I chase? Who do I want to be like? And he's like, I chase me in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's always going to be me in 10 years. That's who I'm chasing. That's who I'm striving to be. And I'm never going to get there. And as long as I keep, striving to be better and stronger and more amazing, like, that's like the
Yeah,
best thing
I
you could
love
do
that.
for yourself.
I
Yeah,
love
and I
Matthew
think
McConaughey.
something to bring out about that too is, like, it's not about that makes me better than you. It just means
Exactly.
that I know I
You're
can
doing what
still
you're supposed
be
to.
better. I can
Yes.
still be better, and I'm going to keep striving for that best version of me. Now, the best version of me may not be better comparatively to other persons,
But
or
it's important.
it might be,
It's going to help others.
yeah, or it might be better, but it doesn't. The thing for me, and I think, like, what I love about that. Thank you for that, Shannon. I didn't know you said that, but, like, that focus it's about just that constant state of improvement. It's what gets me up in the morning. Like, I wake up in the morning and I lay there and, like, I try sometimes just to lay in bed for a long time, but it's 3 a.m. and I'm laying there and I'm like, okay, I'm on my pillow, and, like, I'm supposed to be sleepy and I'm supposed to roll around and, like, go, oh God, I don't want to wake up. But then I'm like, but man, there's some shit I can get done today, right? And, like, I get excited and I'm like, all right, I know where I'm growing. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm valuing. And I'll admit that in itself, right, during this time of, like, massive change, has almost become exhausted. I've almost had to, like, dial myself way back and be like, look, man, you need to, like, just chill out and sit down and just let the world settle down a bit before you start pushing anymore. Because there's just a lot going on, and you got to take some time to be aware and get your bearings on you and stuff like that. But
That's
yeah,
that's. I mean, it's you're so accurate because it's not on our timeline, regardless of how much it feels like it is. And becoming the ultimate version of self, or the best version, or 1% better every single day, like leveraging the things that you can control, it's going to benefit everybody around you in your life, in your circles and shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to make that in itself contagious. You know.
yeah,
And I love everything you said, because in a weird way, I may not have nothing to show for it in a like net worth kind of status at this moment, given some things that might be perceived as mistakes, but actually at this point seem to be blessings. Um, I really believe that you know that what I mean, really, what it comes down to is every single thing that has happened has had to happen. There's no other way that these doors would have opened for me. And you saying that you are exactly where you wanted to be, I love that because you're a freaking champion and a hero, and you've changed like at least 50 or 100 lives, like tripled incomes, and like done shit for people that I've never, more. You've done more for more people that I know of than any person that I've ever known. But besides that, uh, us crossing paths and you helping me remember a lot of things that I already knew. And I am also at a point in my life that I realize that I've made it. If tomorrow is my day, like I made it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's been pretty. There's been a whole bunch of black eyes and like lots of car crashes and like crazy shit that you can't make up. But at the end, like the people that my children are becoming, and the love that I've given the people that have loved me, and the like what I've accomplished in my career and what I've accomplished just in all fronts of my life, to your point, like I've made it. But every day that my eyes open, I have another chance to dial it in a little bit more, get a little bit closer to it. Because at the end of the day, again, we are ourselves and we're awesome and should be who we are. But who we are and who we should be isn't what it's all about. It's about them, the others, us, y'all, whatever. And by each of us being the best individual, there's less to govern because you have people governing themselves and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't need representatives or whatever to lead us. Like, we can lead each other through if we all bring our best side and all of our, because we all.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're willing to pick our focus and move forward, that kind of internal growth, if you just make that simple commitment that I just want to be 1% better today than I was yesterday, you will inevitably over time unhook, unlock, and unchain yourself from every self-limiting belief that you have. Okay, let's take a quick pause here for a moment, and I want to ask you something. What would 1% better feel like for you today? Would it be focus? Would it be ease? Or could it be joy? Maybe it's courage. In the Pathfinder gridwork experience, we don't just talk about transformation, we feel it. One word at a time, one layer deeper, one moment more aligned. So what's your one word for this moment? The one feeling that would elevate your day, even just for 5 minutes. Not sure yet? That's what we're here for. Come find me inside the Evolving Mindsets community, and we'll find your one word together. If you just make that simple commitment that I just want to be 1% better today than I was yesterday, you will inevitably over time unhook, unlock, and unchain yourself from every self-limiting belief that you have. And it doesn't have to be rapid. It doesn't have to be intense. You can just allow it to happen a little bit at a time. And you're right. As you do that, you give permission for other people to do the same. And you talk about like all the people I've helped, and what it's so amazing to me. And I love that. And I thank you. And I appreciate that acknowledgement, and it's, I feel kind of, like, I don't know how to say this, you guys help me, but like I feel almost this certain guilt about this sense that a lot of that wasn't always my first intention. My first intention was always just to be self-responsible, to not really, to be a collaborative creative force by being the best that I can. And that, seems to be how the opportunities were created for me to help other people, because I believe that we're all capable of doing that. And I know that when we take on our challenges, when we take on those things where we need to grow, and we're willing to look it right in the face and go, hey, I want to get better about this. Not only are we owning the change, not only are we catalyzing it, but what happens on the other side of that, the reward is so worth it. And it's not about like grind till you go blind.
Yeah.
It's just about consistent internal personal progress.
I mean, there's a book, I think it's called, it's about 1% every day. I know you know. Okay, well, anyway, um, remind me about I think it was Michelangelo that saw the was said that inside of the block was the form. Tell me about that again.
Yeah, so in Italy, I got the chance to go to the big museum there in Florence. I can't remember exactly what the name of it was, so I apologies for that. But they have Michelangelo's David and Michelangelo's unfinished works, and you know of David and Moses and the really popular ones that you learn about in history. But when you're there, you get to see these unfinished works, and they're like these stone pillars, and like it looks like people are like coming out of them because he would start to carve away and shape their form. And so they were telling us that, Michelangelo's philosophy is that the statues that he carved, the people, that the spirit of the statue, the person was already in the stone, the carving was already in the stone. What he was doing was chipping away just removing the unnecessary rock around it. So he felt like he was discovering with every hit, with every chink, like this thing that was already there in the stone.
Isn't that what we're all doing every day of our existence, bro? In this
Yeah.
miraculous existence? This is the opportunity that we all have. Now, are we going to take it? Are we going to pick up the chisel or whatever the things required, you know what I'm saying, and do what we are capable of doing? It's the call of duty. We've all been called.
Yeah, I think about it like this, right? Like I know it's kind of a natural human thing to want things to be easy, right? And I don't actually like I don't look for easy. I look for ease. And the difference is ease is what happens when when you become good at a hard thing until it's no longer hard, right? Through practice, through growth, through focus, through learning, through development. When you can take a hard thing and make it so that it is no longer hard, that is ease, right? And so, I always like to look at like when change is going on around me is like, wow, this change is hard. How do I make this hard thing not hard? How do I develop ease with this? And
Mhm.
Shannon's really great at this, right? Like, and this is where the whole community, our conversations, right? Sometimes it's just good to get together with people and go like, man, I have a lot of change going on. And if you hear someone saying that, like, man, there's a lot of change going on in my life, one of the best things you can do is just let that person just dump it out. Like, hey, here's the change I'm having. Like, because it's a lot. And then as a friend, you can help find, where's the purpose, where, you're already providing the community, remind them that they are a dynamic individual, and then make sure that they have some rituals, find those things that are consistent in their life, because that will always help someone kind of, ground in and become neutralized to the intensity of the change so that they can start to process it with more ease. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that. I'm going to tie in something that is somewhat relevant, but I think completely relevant. Anyway, Plato's allegory of the cave, he called the change. Okay. So in Plato's allegory of the cave, we're all like chained to blocks and we're facing the back wall of the cave. And behind us, there's a pathway and there's a big fire. And there's people walking on the pathway with different artifacts on their head and carrying shit. And it's casting a shadow on the wall. And we all perceive that wall, the shadows, to be reality. Then one day, people wake up, like is happening right now, and some of them take what Plato called the long and rugged ascent out of the cave, and climbed out of the cave and was able to behold the light. And then that person that once a slave that's now freed goes back down and talks to all the slaves, and they're all like, "You're crazy." I'm pretty sure, like in history, they kill you or you self-destruct, like Jesus or Socrates or like Jim Morrison or I don't know. But but there's something else out there, bigger and better beyond where we all are kind of slaves, like just thinking the shadows are reality. But it's the long and rugged ascent. It's going to take some change. It's going to take some action, some strategizing, some discipline, and some like helping each other up for us to exit the cave that we're in. It's kind of like the matrix within the cave that we're in.
No, I totally agree with you. I think in today's society, though, I think one of the biggest things that
we need to do in that rugged ascent is to not go alone.
Totally. I just give you a
Mhm.
hug.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're so isolated in so many different ways. Um, dealing with change is best to be dealt with other people.
Hell yeah. United we
Everybody needs
stand.
that support.
Oh yeah, united we stand, sister.
Yeah. Well, and what it does is the other people, like it kind of comes back to this, and you've probably heard this. I know that's out there, like change your focus, change your life. It can get cliche, but it really is. If you change where you're focused on, I teach in the Level Up Leadership program the garbage in, garbage out method, right? Like, and talking about where you're focusing, what you're allowing into your experience will totally, facilitate what's happening in your experience. And so, we see and we can build up and develop a perception where everything around us is terrible. And if we're allowing our focus to be given to us and by someone who does not have our best intentions in mind, by content that's really doesn't care about anything other than the fact that we're watching it, this can really spiral us into the negative side of change and and really intensify the pain, the agony, the anxiety, because the anxiety is just the bad side of anticipation. Anxiety is when you fear what's coming. Anticipation is when you love what's coming, right? And so, we have a kind of dominant marketing culture out there that really focuses into, trying to convince you that things are bad so that you'll impulse purchase in the direction that they want, right? They don't care that it makes you feel terrible. They're not worried about that. But what we have to do is really own that experience. So, one thing I work with my clients on is like ensuring, look, don't have notifications coming through on your phone that you don't need, right? Go if you're watching YouTube or using any platform, dislike things that aren't serving you. There's a misnomer there. People think that when you put a thumbs down on a piece of content on YouTube, that you're telling YouTube that that person did not make good content. You're not judging a person's content. You're informing YouTube that it either did a good job in recommending that video to you or it did a bad job because it's not what you want. And if you would actually, when you see those kind of inflaming things, if you would just say, look, this isn't the content I want, it will either drive it to the people who do want that content. And if they do, then that content is for them. Or if that content's not really serving anyone, it will inform the creator that you need to change your approach in how you're delivering your content, because people don't want to be, braided with sales tactics and, all the techniques that they do to kind of manipulate and drive economies. People don't, you're essentially begging for money out there. That's what I found in studying marketing over the past couple months is almost every marketing teacher out there, the really successful ones, are telling you how to beg and beg for money and how to set up spam traps. Like, it's amazing, like high level expensive marketing programs that you can purchase, you buy them, they're spam traps. And I'm like, wow, that's not really marketing. That's like setting up a mechanism to herd cattle into, the slaughterhouse. Like, I'm not doing that, right? I won't follow that approach. So, the one thing that to gain that control of change and kind of help us to get through it is to make sure that we're allowing the right things into our focus, because you want to dial that noise down so that you can hear what it is that you don't want to change. What you don't want to change is your alignment and your connection to your happiness, to your mission, to your purpose, to your community, to all those things that you love. You dial that noise down and you can hear that vibration. How strong is it? And when that starts to change, if it starts to weaken, well, then you need to strengthen it. If it starts to grow stronger, then you follow that direction, right? You want to really tap into that thing that makes you the happiest and let your changes, as you're choosing, because there's a big part of that too. With change comes choice, right? You have to decide, how are you going to respond to it. You always want to make the decision that's in favor of what is in the highest alignment with your greatest joy and your greatest outcome. That's how you get, like Matthew McConaughey said, to that 10-year-old self that's way ahead of you. You want to chase that person because they're headed in the direction of the life you want. You want to follow their pathway forward.
Agreed. Matthew McConaughey also has a bunch of other videos that are super inspiring, like little like interviews and stuff. Like, I don't know, it's just another one of us, and there's more of us than we all even know. And none of us are obviously any better than any of us. However, all of us are equally valuable to each of us. You know what I'm saying? Each of us has something that the others need, and we can't let them allow us to forget that. And this thing that we're doing and what we're working on is to remind everyone that they have something that the rest of us need, and you may not hear that on the news or like whatever social media like algorithm, but you're awesome, and so are we. And I mean, together we can magnify the shine, and it's about the message. And you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to stay in that positive light and that focus, right? To where we can draw in those good things to us, because the more you're paying attention to them, the more you're going to recognize them, and the more you're going to see them. So, that's, I think, channel, it's like you said, well, let it become an adventure. Like, where are the opportunities, the good side of change, right? One thing
Yeah.
that's scary is AI, right? I see so much stuff that people are kind of freaking out about AI, like, and it's funny, because if I go to watch, like, get news on where AI is, it's all under this veil of AI might be the end of us, AI is smarter than human, it's like, holy crap, just stop with the nonsense, right? Like, just talk about it. It's still interesting without you trying to make it sound like you're producing a horror movie. Like, just let it be good. Because, like, what I've experienced over the past couple months with AI, and I've been working with people to help them build custom AI assistants, right? So personality designed assistants at a high complex level that can talk to them, interact, and feedback with them in a way that is helpful for them and supports their own development and growth. And people are having breakthroughs with these. They're talking about how they feel so seen and heard. They're getting good, clear feedback. So the interaction that they're having with these AI partners is fantastic. I also had the opportunity to work with this woman who said she felt like she really wanted to write children's books, and she had this like desire to like make songs, but she's like, but I don't, she's like, I could write lyrics, she's like, but I don't, sing, and I don't really necessarily play any instruments or anything. And so I said, well, come here, and I showed her the platform Suno, and I was like, look, put your lyrics in here, and you can put your style in here, and bam, it will produce these songs. You can tell it, you want a child song, and you can talk about the tempo and the shape and the color and everything of the music, and it will lay it out for you. So, there's so much good change that is happening right now. And incredible things. And this is what's interesting to me. Some of the best things are slipping under the radar right now. I was telling Shannon last night, I was watching this video on just like top 25 inventions that were coming out. And Shane, you'll get the significance of this. But they were talking about that a technology is being released, that they have now portable, and this is a big word, portable nuclear reactors that fit on the back of a semi truck that don't use water cooling. So there's less, or don't use water. So there's less, if none, nuclear waste, right? The rods, as they're depleted, can be repurposed, that they have facilities in France that they know how to recycle and regenerate this so they can get maximum efficiency out of this. But this one generator will generate 5 megawatts of power for 15 years, 5 megawatts off one semi truck. So, I mean, like, that just creates a whole new level of diversity and scale and distribution, redundancy throughout networks. I mean, remote mining operations and research operations. Like, we are making breakthroughs right now that are going to alter the course of humanity for the next 200 to 300 years. But because it's all new, we're kind of going through this weird, like, little panic moment, like, and really, what I hate to just keep picking on it, but the way we're marketing, the way, and I say we're because there's a lot of people going in the entrepreneurial space, and they're picking up bad marketing habits, and they're just perpetuating this kind of panic marketing, right? Create a sense of urgency, create a sense of scarcity, create, limitations, all this kind of stuff to get people to purchase, and like get people into a fervor. We don't need a fervor right now. We need stability. We need calmer, clearer, consistent voices. We need people with rationality and reason who can see us where we're at, who is being real about it and not just trying to run a 30-year-old script that honestly quit working 10 years ago.
So that was a lot, bro. And
Sorry, yeah.
so, which is the exact reason why coming into this, like being high level, because there's so many different ways you can cut this onion down and really dig down into it. But you're right. Like, okay, so there was like, I mean, I don't know, hunter and gatherers. Okay, single cell organisms, and then whatever. And now we got hunters and gatherers, and then like, I don't know, like freaking the Stone Age, like Iron Age, then the Industrial Revolution, right? And then like fucking .com, and like, okay, AI. More is about to change. It already has in the last like 20 years. Like in our lifetime, and real in the next 50 years, more is going to change than the whole time up to now for human beings ever combined. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we probably need to, for the sake of time and sanity of everybody involved, like shave that down a little bit for later topics, because very interesting and lots of shit is about to change. And I don't even think that anybody really even understands it. Like AI, like C-3PO, it's real. It's going to change us forever in the most awesome ways imaginable, but we're going to fuck it up just like we have everything else, because we humans do. Every tool that we've ever had, we use it for good things and bad things, but
Well, tell us how you really feel there.
whole another thing. Dude, it's the most powerful thing I've ever used. I'm just starting to like figure it out, and it's mind blowing. However, we should reserve that to where we can like go into it a little bit more moving forward, because I guess what I feel like is it's a Pandora box. So I'm taking.
Well, like on that, Shannon, like just talk for a few minutes if you would. Where you were, like, here you want to talk about a change and growth thing. Shannon, where were you with AI a year ago, and what has working with it opened up for you? How often do you use it? Do you find that experience terrifying, like it's an evil villain that's about to kill you that you're kind of guarding your life with, or do you find it very helpful? Like, I'd just kind of riff on it for a minute.
No, I think AI is super magical. And to Shane's point, yeah, we could almost have an AI podcast part 2 on that, just with what has changed since last year when we were talking about it. Yeah, I went into using AI as a huge skeptic, and felt very uncomfortable about the idea, and was unsure of what it was all going to entail. But now that I've been using it for, I guess, about a year, it's extremely helpful. And it's, at this point, it knows me so well, because it obviously is a mirror to whatever you feed to it. It's going to give back to you. um and I do feel like it gives back what I need, like exactly what I need every time. um it's I don't know. It's a great tool
Yeah,
that,
so like, for how are you using it? Like I know some of the stuff you're doing, like the artwork that you create inside the community and stuff like that. It's how I love how you can, or from what I understand in your experience, like you're just kind of expressing what's on your heart and what's on your mind, and saying, look, I want to help to, bring this kind of stuff into a theme. This is what I feel like the community could benefit and use, and it helps to structure and articulate that and kind of bring, not just your perspective, because you know what you need, but like when when you're trying to think about what does a community of people need, you need some outside perspective, so it
yeah,
can go
no,
grab that.
I use it as a supplemental tool. Like it is not there as my primary source of creativity. You use it to enhance my ideas that I already have. I use it for the themes of the month. I use it to come up with challenges that we do every month on whatever theme it is. Like this month is breaking out of the mold, and so I use it to come up with like weekly challenges for everybody. I use it to come up with quotes that I use to inspire people. And sometimes I need a specific image that I can't find anywhere, that we don't have like a license to use. And so I use it to create images that enhance my project. So that's
Yes.
primarily what I use it for.
Yeah, and I think that's a powerful shift within itself, right? Is changing perspective from AI as a fear of replacement to AI as a tool for enhancement. And it's what Shane was saying. Like, it's a tool. You can take a hammer and you can hit someone over the head, or you can take a hammer and you can build a house. It depends on whose hand the hammer's in, what the hammer's going to do. And that's what you have to realize with AI. It's not about AI itself. It's about who's using it and who's interacting with it. And here's my thing. This is what I've been talking to the people in my circles is, especially good, loving, kind, earnest people who have goodwill in their heart. I'm like, will you please use AI? Because we need more of, I call them the light workers. We need more of those people interacting with this and using it so that we're building without building lopsided. Because if we stand back afraid of it and just go, oh, look, it's an evil thing. Well, yeah, evil people are going to rush in there and use it, and it's going to manifest and look very evil to us because we never stood up and participated in it ourselves.
Yeah, I think AI is, one of the changes that is like, it's a prominent change in the world right now, as with a lot of things. But I think, as with anything, you can let the change happen to you, and if you don't utilize it and you don't work with it and you don't move with that change and change yourself, um, you're going to get left behind. And I think kind of like the most important thing that you can do with AI or with any sort of change is to harness it to your benefit.
So let me pull us back into the previous conversation of just change. Like, yes, that is exactly right. It is a super most powerful tool ever, and we can use it, and we should use it to help manifest change, and we can do it exponentially given the power of the tool. But but as in all of the change that we've been discussing, it's that same intent in our moment that we're in, and and the strategy that we have within us that we should have moving forward, and and facilitating the alignment with the choices that we make. It's all the intent behind the tools and the moments and that are going to get us to the most optimal destination beyond the change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And one thing I was just thinking, Shane, I love about you is, we think about this like you don't change, right? You go through changes. I've watched you evolve, but it's the same thing. You're still the same person doing the you love big. You have mission and purpose in your heart, and everywhere you go, you're always bringing that. You're always looking for that opportunity. Shannon, like, you're always consistent. You're always caring. You're always looking for happiness. For me, I'm always looking to help people, to strive, to figure out how do we build something bigger, better. So it's so interesting because even though we're all experiencing change and that's disorienting and different as it's coming in, we're kind of the thing that doesn't change, right? Like, we're still
Like
here.
constellations, like the constellations. Think about it. Before all this technology, and before, like, when people couldn't even talk to each other, like before boats and shit, and they're on their own shores or their own, like, they've been navigating and or watching the stars. Can we even see the stars anymore, y'all? This humanity right now, can we even see the stars are still there?
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all we're doing is in another kind of realm, just connecting the same dots of light, constellation style. It's like
Yeah,
we,
to Clint's point, he's saying that Shane is still the same. I think that any of us are who we are today by adapting to the changes in our life and evolving with them. You can just as easily with any sort of change that comes along or any sort of difficulty, turn to the dark side. That as long as you, hold on to the light and the positive things, and you roll with the changes and you adapt, you're still going to be yourself, but you're going to be the better version of yourself.
Yo, Shane Skywalker is up in here, and I'm putting the B in beaming, y'all.
I know the dark side has cookies, but let's stay on the light
I
side.
mean, I'm beaming. I don't know.
Yeah, man, it's interesting, as we go through this, right? Like there's a lot on the plates, and I'm glad that we talked about this, and I hope for anybody listening that it resonates, right? We're just bringing out the fact and kind of addressing the elephant in the room. There's no sense in trying to move through a whole season of content without just talking about there's a lot changing. There's more changing than we're going to be able to cover in kind of the vehicle of this podcast. And we've got a whole list of great things that we want to talk about. We are looking at some guests we want to have. And I'm just going to put this out there. Like Greg Ellis came, he was our guest last year. Would love to have him back on if he's available. Lots of other people that we've met since then that have great stories, just about amazing transformations, different ways to thinking about things, looking for those opportunities, because our hope is to be what we are, to be consistent through the change, to grow, to evolve with our audience, to, listen to feedback and create spaces where we can get together and be happy and share these things and survive this, because no matter what happens, we're going to come out the other end of this. And when we do, it's going to be us. We're going to be there. We're going to be there with each other. Hopefully we don't lose many people along the way. It might happen, but someone is going to be there. Someone's going to be on the other side. And when we get to the other side, when we get through this change, we want to have the things in place to build beautiful parts of the world, to see economies that work well, that are stable, to see things flowing around the world the way that they need to be, to see nations not at war, building more peace. And these are big utopian dreams, and I don't care. I dream that big. I dream for utopia, because that's that future self I'm headed toward. Why not? Why not reach for the stars? And if I make it to the moon, then that's awesome. Like that's the change that I want to be. It's the change I want to bring into the world. And, I know you guys, probably feel the same. So, I mean, like come on, Shane, I know you're probably chomping. Hit me, buddy.
Actually, I just went pee. Honestly, it was like awesome power. Sorry about that.
And some things never change. See, it's good, right?
And some things don't change.
Yeah.
But besides all the shenanigans, yeah, no, like, I mean, we're like, we all are have the opportunity. We're like paddling out, and we have the chance to make the choice to ride the wave, or just to be like crashed against the rocks or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's coming along. There's no ferry, and we're alive. It's a miracle. And like right now, every single moment, like some days I'll wake up and like be like feeling like, I don't know, like less than optimal. I'll just put on Bob Marley. Like even that little choice right there helps make positive change in Shane's world. Shane's world. And
And it brings back that consistency, right?
yeah. And like as much as we can say focus on the gratitude and the mission and the joy, and then
The
we stick
truths that
together.
never change. Yeah.
Yeah. And stick together, like magnify the light, community, and we shine each other. We all grow. I mean, this is not rocket science. We've like lost our way. We've let like them, whoever they are, that we are all like reading their shit or whatever in the news, like distract us from who we can be and who we really are. And we've lost our sense of value. And it's important that we all remind each other how valuable we are to each other and to everyone, so that we all can get it back. So I'm proud of this endeavor and working with you guys and connecting the dots, constellation style. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all the goats before us, we're going to be able to hold the cave up with one arm and shine the light forward with the other arm, and hope that by giving back in that way, others will do the same moving forward and after us. That's all I got.
Yeah. I just want to add, as we're wrapping up, I just want to remind people that with all of the change in the world, it can be very overwhelming. Um, you're probably seeing a lot of like negativity out there on the internet and a lot of different ways, things that just make you feel like completely overwhelmed and
Like
hopeless. And
negativity, and there's negativity and negativity. They're both distracting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I just want to remind everybody, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling alone and you're tired of all the negativity, we do have a community that is just full of positive people. It's super supportive. It's a great place to come and just find the light when it's feeling really dark outside. And, come check us out. It's evolvingmindsets.com. Just come hang out with us. Come feel the light, come feel the love, come feel the support. And we can work through all this crazy change together.
Yeah. Do you have some quotes on change? I love your quotes.
I do have some quotes on change. Of course I do. You ready? You want me to roll those out?
I mean, like what? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm not like I'm not like. Are we okay?
Are you trying to do my job, Shane?
Sorry. No.
Look, this is okay. Change is coming. Maybe next.
No, I don't want to do your job. It's not my job. No, but I was just going to flow. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but definitely. Let's go ahead and just to kind of get back to that whole thing about consistency. We started out last year with nothing but a desire in our heart and the willingness to make mistakes until we figured it out. And through that, we kind of developed a little in sequence, and we're going to keep that the same going on this year as we close out. So Shannon is going to share with us some quotes and kind of on change, some reinforcing thoughts and things that we can just reflect on over the coming week until the next episode comes out. And then Shane is going to close us out with a poem, and then we will see you in the next episode. So Shannon, why don't you start shutting it down for us? Give us some quotes to think about and something to keep our spirits up over the week.
Yeah, totally. Change is a super interesting topic, and there's so many amazing quotes out there on this. So I will read off quite a few, I think, because there's so many interesting perspectives on it. The first one is said by Alan Watts. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, enjoy.
Oh, yeah, I love you, Alan.
JFK said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future.
Oh, damn.
That's a good one. Viktor Frankl says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.
Whoa.
Viktor Frankl, just so everybody knows, wrote A Man's Search for Meaning, which was his life coming out of the concentration camp. So just read that quote one more time because it's super powerful.
We love you, Victor.
It says, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.
What?
So beautiful.
Dude, and he came out of like the worst case scenario pretty much ever.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
okay, incredible.
Okay, Victor. Damn. Keep going.
Okay, Raymond Lindquist said, courage is the power to let go of the familiar.
Wow. Courage is the power to let go of the familiar. Yeah, to embrace change. Wow.
Yeah. John Porter said, people underestimate their capacity for change. There is never a right time to do a difficult thing.
So true.
Let's see here. Eckhart Tolle said, some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being created in your life for something new to emerge.
Absolutely. Like the red words in the Bible. I feel like that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Man.
That's my boy Eckhart, man. I like it. Read A New Earth. Fantastic book.
We gave you a hug, group hug, Eckhart.
And then I've got some pop culture quotes for you from movies or fictional characters, which I always like to throw in there. But Superman says, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith first. The trust part comes later.
Ooh.
Nice.
T'Challa from Black Panther said the world is changing and we must change with it.
Yeah.
Tony Stark said it's not about how much we lost, it's about how much we have left.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful and powerful, man. I thank you so much, Shannon. All right, buddy. What do you got for us? Go ahead and close this thing out, and then I might throw some music after this, but yeah, give us some delight in our final moments here.
I don't know if this is delightful. I just pulled it up and I don't know. Hopefully it helps. But and this may be from last season, but here we go. It's bigger than us. After all that happened, still standing, it all had to happen for what is happening. So like the sun, you'll always find me rising, illuminating, beaming, just shining so brightly, exactly as we were all meant to be. My story definitely has not been pretty, black-eyed, but still smiling, as the Creator is always calling. We are chosen and must be answering. Yet sadly, many deny absolute reality, like puppets strung on the worldly string in this hourglass while the sand is falling. And we are blindly trusting, worshiping the broken machine, chasing power and money and poverty. Oh, what a haunting when we carelessly abandon our purpose, mission, and believing. It's bigger than us and all we see changing. And though the clock is constantly ticking, we still have time to find our meaning. Everybody might want to go like shave off the house and build the wall. I don't know, but
No, that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was fantastic, man, and perfectly in alignment with everything. So for everyone that's listening, I just want to say thank you. If you liked or subscribed or left comments, we so appreciate it. It really lets us know that, this message and the work that we're doing is making it. And so, if you're the only one that does, then this was for you. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your feedback, your comments, your support, and we're here for you. And with that, this is the Evolving Mindsets podcast crew, and we're signing off until next time. Talk to you guys soon.
Love y'all.
Ladies and gents, listen close. Signals in the air, coast to coast. Dial in your mind, get ready now. Set your spirit free, it's going down. Attention passengers, all aboard. Please keep your hearts and minds inside the vehicle. Breaking news, this just in. Freedom always wins. Dial into a higher plane. Calibration for your brain. Interrupting your usual flow to tell you something you should know. In the frequency lies the key. Unlock yourself to feel truly free. Broadcast from the land of dreams, where nothing is as it seems. Close your eyes, let the sound guide. Feel the rhythm deep inside.